stop scrolling. Because what this billionaire saw on his hidden camera will break your heart in ways you never expected. He installed those cameras to catch lazy workers. But instead, he witnessed a poor maid doing something so unbelievable with his paralyzed triplets that he dropped to his knees and cried for the first time in 7 years. This is the story the world needs to hear. Stop scrolling, because this story will shake your heart. And I mean it. Some stories touch your emotions. Some stories make you cry. But this one will make you rethink what love truly looks like. Because behind the tall golden gates of the Hayes mansion lived a billionaire feared by everyone, but ignored by the 3 people who needed him the most. Leonard Hayes, a man the world admired, a man the business world respected, a man who built an empire worth billions. People said he had everything: power, money, status. But those who lived under his roof knew the real truth. Leonard had nothing. Nothing that mattered, at least. The mansion he lived in stretched across the hill like a palace. Marble floors cold as ice, hallways so long they swallowed your footsteps, and chandeliers that sparkled brighter than diamonds. Yet for all its beauty, the mansion felt empty, silent, and that silence came from 3 little rooms at the far end of the hallway. Rooms that held the most heartbreaking sight in Leonard's life. His paralyzed triplets, Lily, Liam, and Lucas. They were only 7 years old, small, fragile, innocent, born with bodies that refused to respond and voices that could barely whisper. They spent their days lying in soft beds, wrapped in blankets, staring at the ceiling as the world forgot them. And the cruelest part? Their mother never got the chance to hold them. She had died giving birth, and Leonard had never recovered. The day she died, he buried his heart with her. From that moment on, he became a machine, a cold, silent machine. He worked nonstop. He hid in his office. He avoided holidays, birthdays, celebrations, anything that reminded him of the wife he lost and the life he failed to give his children. Nurses came and went. Doctors visited daily. Specialists flew in from other countries. But Leonard? He barely spent 5 minutes with his own children. 5 minutes. Even the staff whispered about it. He loves them, one nurse said, but he doesn't know how to love them. He's scared of them, another replied. They remind him of everything he lost. He doesn't even smile at them, someone else whispered. Leonard heard those whispers. He pretended he didn't. But deep inside, they cut him like knives. Then one day, one whisper changed everything. As Leonard walked past the hallway, he heard a nurse murmur softly, "The kids are happier when he's not around." He froze. Happier? Without him? Leonard stopped in the hallway, hand pressed against the wall, breathing hard. For years, he believed he was doing the right thing, providing money, doctors, comfort. But what if he had been wrong? What if his presence brought fear instead of comfort? What if he was the reason his children never smiled? What if they hated him? The thought haunted him day and night. And that's when suspicion began to grow. What was happening when he wasn't home? Were the nurses treating the kids properly? Were they caring or careless? Were they helping or hurting? Leonard had seen enough news stories about abused, disabled children behind closed doors. He refused to let that happen under his roof. So he made a decision, one he never thought he'd make. He secretly installed security cameras all around the triplet playroom and therapy room, hidden behind picture frames, inside air vents, above bookshelves. No one knew, not the nurses, not the cooks, not even the head housekeeper. Only Leonard. He told himself it was for safety, for protection, for peace of mind. But deep down, it was because he was terrified. Terrified of what he might find. Would he catch a nurse ignoring the kids? Would he see someone scrolling on their phone instead of feeding them? Would he witness rough hands, impatient voices, or careless treatment? His mind spiraled with possibilities. The cameras were installed late at night. And the very next morning, Leonard sat in his office with his laptop open, ready to watch the recordings. He expected boredom. Doctors walking in. Nurses adjusting pillows. Maybe a maid sweeping the floor. Normal things. But when he pressed play, what he saw made his heart stop. Not slow. Not skip. Stop. He leaned forward. His breath hitched. His hand trembled on the mouse. Because inside the screen, inside the very room he thought he knew, something was happening. Something he never expected. Something he had never seen with his own eyes. The triplets, his silent, paralyzed children, were not silent. Their eyes moved. Their fingers twitched. Their lips quivered. They were responding, emotionally, physically, alive in a way he had never witnessed. And the reason? A woman he barely remembered hiring. A maid who moved gently, softly, lovingly. A maid who did something no doctor, no nurse, no therapist had ever done. She touched their souls. Leonard's jaw dropped open. He couldn't blink. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't even understand what he was seeing. Because this maid, this stranger, this young woman with no degree, no medical badge, no expensive training, was doing more for his children than he, a billionaire father, had ever done. And in that moment, Leonard felt something strange, something painful, something he hadn't felt in 7 long years. Regret. Deep, aching regret. But he didn't look away. He couldn't. Because what the maid did next would change everything and would leave him absolutely frozen. Before I reveal what the camera showed next, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel if you love emotional, life-changing stories like this. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories your way. Red Heart. A week before the cameras were installed, Leonard Hayes had hired a new maid, Amara, a quiet 24-year-old woman with gentle eyes and a shy smile. She always wore her hair in a simple braid, tied her apron neatly, and spoke only when necessary. She didn't look important. She didn't act important. And in a mansion full of loud personalities and polished professionals, she blended into the background like a shadow. Leonard hardly noticed her during interviews. He only hired her because she was the last candidate left, and he was tired of interviewing people. But the triplets, they noticed her. From the very first day. Whenever Amara walked past their room, their eyes, usually blank and unfocused, suddenly tried to follow her. Whenever she bent down to pick up toys or blankets, Lily's small fingers twitched, as if reaching for her. Whenever she whispered good morning, Liam's toes curled slightly. Whenever she smiled at them, Lucas's eyes shimmered with the faintest hint of tears. Doctors said it was impossible. Therapists said it shouldn't happen. Specialists insisted the children's reactions were involuntary. But something inside those tiny bodies came alive whenever Mara was near. And Leonard, distracted by work and grief, had absolutely no idea. Then came the morning that changed everything. Leonard sat alone in his office, a cup of untouched coffee cooling beside him. He clicked through the security feed with mild boredom. Most of it looked exactly like he expected. Nurses checking 4 lines. A therapist stretching the kids' limbs. A housekeeper arranging pillows. Routine. Mechanical. Emotionless. He was about to close the laptop when he heard a soft knock on the playroom door, on the screen, not in real life. Then she entered. Amara. And just like that, the entire atmosphere inside the room shifted. The children's eyes turned toward her instantly. Their chests rose slightly faster. Their expressions softened, as if her very presence warmed the air. Leonard's eyebrows lifted. He leaned forward. Amara quietly closed the door behind her, not with a loud click other staff members made, but with the kind of gentle touch you use when tucking in a sleeping baby. Then she walked toward the triplets, slow, patient steps, like she didn't want to startle them. She didn't check charts. She didn't scold the nurses. She didn't rush. Instead, she knelt down so her eyes were level with theirs. And Leonard watched, stunned, as she whispered, "Good morning, my little heroes." Heroes? No one had ever spoken to them like that. Nurses said, "Okay, let's start therapy." Doctors said, "Patient is stable." Staff said, "Oh, those poor kids." But Amara, she spoke to them like they were special. Then she did something that made Leonard sit up straighter. She gently lifted each child, Not carelessly, not quickly, but with the same tenderness a mother uses when picking up her newborn. She placed them into cushioned play chairs she had set up earlier, arranging blankets around their bodies so they sat upright. Lily's eyelids fluttered with excitement. Liam's feet wiggled. Lucas's breathing deepened. Leonard's heart skipped. "They're responding," he whispered. "They're really responding to her." But this was only the beginning. Suddenly, Amara reached into her apron pocket and pulled out something unexpected. 3 tiny, handmade puppets. One shaped like a lion, one like a bird, one like a little prince with messy yarn hair. Leonard froze. He had never seen those before. When she raised the puppets, the silent room filled with joy. And it wasn't loud joy. Not laughter or words. Not shouts or giggles. It was softer. Lily's fingers trembled with effort, trying to touch the lion puppet. Liam's toes curled again and again, tiny bursts of excitement. Lucas blinked rapidly and tears, real, emotional tears, gathered at the corners of his eyes. Leonard brought a hand to his mouth. What is this?" he whispered. No therapist had ever created a reaction like this. No nurse had ever triggered this much energy. No doctor had ever awakened this level of emotion. But Amara? A simple maid with no training? She was unlocking something inside his children that medicine had failed to reach. Then she began talking to them. Not the sterile, clinical talk he was used to hearing. No. She talked to them like they were her best friends. "Okay, Lily," she said in a soft, playful tone. "You get the lion because you're the bravest." Lily's lips trembled, almost like a smile. "And Liam," she continued, placing the bird puppet near him, "you get the bird because one day you're going to fly higher than all of us." Liam's chest lifted with tiny hopeful breaths. "And Lucas, my sweet Lucas." She held the prince puppet up. "You get this one because you're stronger than every king who ever lived." A tear slid down Lucas's cheek. Leonard's throat tightened. He had never seen his children look alive like this. Never. Not once. Amara began moving the puppets, telling a simple story. Each puppet dancing, bouncing, playing. Her voice softened and rose like music, full of emotion and warmth. The triplets reacted more, tiny twitches, little movements, soft sounds that weren't exactly words, but weren't silence either. Leonard leaned in closer to the screen, unable to look away. This wasn't care. This wasn't routine. This was love. Pure, genuine love. Amara wasn't just caring for them. She was bringing them back to life. Waking something inside them that everyone else gave up on. And at that moment, Leonard realized something that broke him inside. Someone else, a stranger, a maid, was giving his children what he never had. Before we continue, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. It truly supports the channel and helps us bring you more powerful, emotional stories that touch the heart. Red Heart. Just when Leonard thought he had seen everything. Just when he thought nothing else could shock him. The moment happened. The moment that made his entire world stop. The moment that nearly knocked the breath out of his chest. Leonard had leaned forward in his chair, already amazed by how the triplets reacted to the puppets, how they tried so hard to move, how their eyes glowed with a kind of life he had never seen before. But then, Amara paused. She looked at the children with a soft, thoughtful expression, as if she remembered something important. Slowly, she reached into the deep pocket of her maid apron. Her fingers curled around something small, something old, something fragile. And then she pulled out a little wooden music box. Leonard's head jerked up. His heart thudded. That music box. He recognized it instantly, even from the grainy camera feed. It looked identical to the one his late wife used to keep on her bedside table. A music box she treasured. A music box she played every night before bed. A music box she had planned to play for their babies when they were born. But the day she died, that music box had gone missing. Leonard assumed it had been lost. But here it was. In the hands of Maid. His breath caught in his throat. What is she doing?" he whispered. On the screen, Amara carefully wound the key. Slow, gentle, respectful. Then the first notes filled the room. Soft, pure, hauntingly familiar. A melody that carried memories like ghosts. The tune drifted around the triplets like warm sunlight. And then Amara did something that shattered Leonard's heart completely. She began to sing. Quietly at first, almost a whisper. Then louder, stronger, filled with emotion. The exact lullaby his late wife used to sing. The same rise and fall of the melody. The same gentle hum between verses. The same comforting softness that used to soothe him during stressful nights. He hadn't heard that song in 7 long years. And now here it was, pouring out from the voice of a woman he barely noticed. Leonard's hand flew to his mouth. His eyes widened. His pulse thundered. It didn't make sense. How does she know that? He breathed, voice shaking. His wife never taught it to anyone. She never recorded it. Never sang it in front of strangers. It was their song, private, intimate, sacred. A song only mother and babies should have heard. Leonard's vision blurred as tears filled his eyes. He leaned even closer to the screen. And what he saw next made him break completely. As Amara sang, something impossible happened. The triplets tried to move toward her. Lily's hand shook uncontrollably, reaching ever so slightly forward. Liam's shoulder twitched with effort, as if trying to sit up. Lucas's lips quivered, opening, closing, trying to form a word. Their eyes glistened with emotion, wide and hopeful. Their tiny bodies, so still for so long, strained with everything they had. Doctors had said their motor nerves were too damaged. Therapists had said voluntary movement was unlikely. Specialists had said emotional response would remain limited. But here they were, responding to the song of a woman they weren't supposed to know. Responding with love, with memory, with recognition. The lullaby was unlocking something deep inside them, something the world had given up on. Leonard felt his throat tighten painfully. He leaned back in his office chair, unable to speak, unable to breathe. Tears streamed down his cheeks, slow but unstoppable. For years, he had believed he was doing everything he could for his children. Doctors, nurses, therapists. But this woman, this maid, was giving them something he had never been able to give. Connection, warmth, healing, love. And that lullaby, her lullaby, it wasn't just a song. It was a memory, a piece of his wife, a piece of the life he lost, a piece of hope he thought had died with her. Leonard shakily wiped his tears, but more came. Who was this woman? How did she know that song? How did she get that music box? How did she touch the children's hearts so deeply? His mind spun with questions. Was she someone from his wife's past? A childhood friend? A former student she had mentored? A neighbor he never noticed? Or was it something even deeper? Something fate-driven? Something meant to be? Leonard didn't have answers. He only had the overwhelming sight of his kids responding to a song that belonged to their mother, as if they remembered her, as if they felt her through Amara's voice. It was too much. The guilt crushed him. All these years, he had been distant, cold, afraid to look at them, afraid to feel anything. And while he hid in his office, drowning himself in work, this woman, this stranger, was giving his children the love he had abandoned. Leonard covered his face with both hands and sobbed silently into his palms. He had failed them. He, their father, had failed them. But Amara, she hadn't. She had stepped into the darkness of his home and brought light. She had stepped into the silence of his children's lives and brought music. She had stepped into the emptiness of his heart and brought memories of the woman he lost. He looked up again at the screen. Amara was finishing the lullaby, wiping a tear from Lucas's cheek, whispering, "It's okay. I'm right here. Mama loves you. I know she does." Leonard's heart cracked. Who was she really? And how long had fate been trying to bring her into their lives? Before we uncover the truth, before the next shocking revelation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel with your friends. Your support truly means the world and helps us create more powerful stories like this. Red Heart. The next morning, the mansion felt heavier than usual. The staff whispered as they worked. The nurses avoided eye contact. Even the triplets seemed unusually still, as if sensing something was about to happen. Leonard Hayes hadn't slept a minute the night before. His mind replayed everything he saw on the cameras. The puppets, the way the kids reacted, the tremble in their hands, the music box, and that lullaby. That lullaby that belonged to the woman he loved more than life itself. He felt confused, guilty, overwhelmed, and desperate for answers. So before sunrise, he made a decision. He pressed the intercom button on his desk and said in a low voice, "Send Amara to my office. Immediately." The moment those words echoed through the hallways, Amara's heart dropped. She was in the kitchen washing bottles when the head housekeeper rushed in. "Amara, Mr. Hayes wants you now." Her hands shook. She wiped them quickly on her apron and whispered, "What did I do wrong?" The housekeeper shrugged nervously. "I don't know. But he sounded different." Amara swallowed hard. Different was never good in a billionaire's house. She walked slowly toward his office, each step echoing like the beat of a drum. Her pulse raced. Her breath came short. Her mind raced with fear. Did he see the puppets? Did she cross some boundary? Was she too affectionate? Was she being fired? When she reached the double doors, she hesitated. Then she knocked. "Come in," Leonard said from inside, his voice deep, restrained, unreadable. She pushed the door open. Leonard sat behind his massive oak desk, arms resting stiffly on the surface, eyes fixed on her, not coldly, but with a strange intensity she had never seen before. Amara bowed her head. "Sir, if I did something wrong, I'm truly sorry." Leonard didn't respond right away. He studied her face, the gentle innocence in her eyes, the small tremble in her hands, the humility in her posture. Finally, he asked, "Where did you learn that lullaby?" The room fell silent. Amara's breath hitched. Her shoulders tensed. Her eyes slowly lifted to meet his. And then, they filled with tears. I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never meant to overstep. I know it wasn't my place. I just thought the children might like it." Leonard's voice softened, but the urgency remained. "Amara, please, tell me, where did you learn that lullaby?" Amara's lips trembled. For a long moment, she didn't speak. She simply stared at the floor, tears dripping onto her apron. Then, finally, brokenly, she whispered, "The song, it was from your wife. She taught me." Leonard's entire body stiffened. His heartbeat stopped. What do you mean she taught you?" he asked, barely able to speak. Amara wiped her eyes, inhaled shakily, and gathered every ounce of courage she had. "Sir, you don't know me. Not really. But years ago, long before you met me, your wife saved my life." Leonard's eyebrows drew together in confusion. "She what?" Amara's voice cracked with emotion. "I was homeless, 14 years old, living on the streets, cold, starving alone. People walked past me every day. No one cared. No one even looked at me." She paused, shaking. "But one night, your wife saw me near a bus stop. She stopped her car. She got out, and she wrapped her coat around me. She took me to a diner and bought me food. She talked to me like I mattered, like I wasn't invisible." Leonard's vision blurred with tears. He hadn't heard a story about his wife in 7 years. Amara continued, "She let me sleep in your guest house for one night, gave me clothes, slipped money into my pocket, and before I left she hugged me." Leonard's throat tightened. "She never told me this," he whispered. Amara nodded sadly. "I don't think she told anyone." Then she said something that made Leonard's breath catch. "She told me I was meant to heal people, that my heart was made for love, and she taught me the lullaby. She said it was for her future children, and if I ever found them needing love, I should sing it." A tear rolled down Leonard's cheek. "Before she died," Amara whispered, "she made me promise that if I ever had the chance, I should protect your children." The room went silent, painful, beautiful, heart-shattering. Leonard collapsed into his chair, his legs suddenly too weak to hold him. All these years, he had been hiring strangers to take care of Lily, Liam, and Lucas, while the one person meant to protect them, the one person his wife trusted, the one person fate had sent, had been in his home, unnoticed. He covered his face with both hands. "Why?" he whispered shakily. "Why didn't you tell me?" Amara looked down, voice trembling. "Because rich men don't listen to poor girls, sir." The words hit him like a dagger. He had been so consumed by grief, so blinded by guilt, so trapped in his cold routines, that he had overlooked the one person who loved his children for real. Leonard stood up slowly. His footsteps were heavy as he walked around the desk toward her. Amara kept her head bowed. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. "If you want me to leave, I understand. If I went too far." But she couldn't finish. Because, in the next moment, Leonard did something no one in the entire mansion had seen him do in 7 years. He stepped forward and gently wrapped his arms around her. Amara froze, shocked. Leonard's voice broke as he whispered, "Thank you for loving my children when I didn't know how." A single tear fell onto her shoulder. And for the first time in years, Leonard Hayes felt hope. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel for more emotional, heart-touching stories like this. Your support means the world. Red Heart. After that day, everything changed inside the Hayes mansion. For the first time in 7 years, Leonard Hayes, once known as the cold billionaire who only cared about work, began waking up early. Not for meetings, not for business calls, but to check on his children. Every morning, before the sun even rose, he found himself standing quietly at their bedroom door, watching them sleep, watching the rise and fall of their chests, watching the peace on their innocent faces. And every morning, without fail, Amara was already there, massaging their stiff limbs, cleaning their tubes, adjusting their little pillows so their necks stayed straight. But this time, Leonard didn't watch through cameras. He watched in person. He stayed beside her, silent, humbled, and learning. At first, the nurses were confused. They had never seen the billionaire father come into the room for more than a few minutes at a time. Some even whispered, "Is he sick? Is something wrong?" But nothing was wrong. Leonard was healing. Because for the first time since his wife died, he allowed himself to feel again. The children began to change. The triplets were born with neurological paralysis. Doctors had said, they will never move. They will never speak. They will never emotionally respond. But Amara refused to accept that. Every day, she worked with them for hours. She moved their fingers one by one. She stretched their legs gently until their toes curled. She brushed their cheeks with soft feathers to encourage sensory reactions. She played little puppet shows that made their eyes shine. She taught them colors, sounds, rhythms, things most people assumed they would never understand. And slowly, miraculously, something began to happen. It started with Lily. During a session with colored cloth ribbons, Amara tied a pink one around Lily's wrist. She held up a blue ribbon beside it and said, "Pink or blue? Which one do you like, sweetheart?" For the first time in her life, Lily's tiny fingers twitched. Just a little. Just enough. But Amara saw it. Leonard saw it. The nurses saw it. And the room exploded in joy. "She moved. She moved," one of the nurses whispered. Leonard fell back against the wall, covering his mouth with shaking hands. His daughter had moved. After 7 silent years. A few weeks later, it was Liam. He was always the quietest of the 3. Always gazing into the distance with those big, thoughtful eyes. Amara had placed a soft musical toy in front of him. A tiny bear that played chimes when pushed. "Come on, sweetheart," she whispered. "Just try to lift your head. Just a little." She pressed her hand under his neck, giving him gentle support. Leonard watched from the side, holding his breath. At first, nothing happened. But then, something unbelievable. Liam's head, slowly shaking, struggling, lifted. Only an inch. But it was more movement than he had ever shown in his entire life. Amara clapped her hands and kissed his forehead. "You did it. You did it, Liam." Leonard turned away, tears falling freely. He had never cried like this. Not even at his wife's funeral. His children were waking up. And then came the miracle that changed everything. It was Lucas, the smallest of the triplets, the one who always seemed the most fragile. Amara had been teaching the children small sounds, using music therapy and vibration tools. She wanted to encourage vocal reactions. One afternoon, Leonard sat beside Lucas, holding his tiny hand. Amara stood behind, slowly tapping a rhythm on Lucas's back to trigger breath control. "Lucas," Amara whispered gently, "your daddy is here. Can you try to say his name?" Leonard shook his head. "Amara, don't pressure him. He's not ready." But she just smiled softly. "Children know love, sir, even when their bodies don't respond." Lucas's lips quivered. Then his little chest expanded. And in a voice so soft, so broken, so small, he whispered, "Duh, duh." The world stopped. Leonard dropped to his knees, his breath shattered by sobs. He hugged Lucas, gently, carefully, crying into his tiny shoulder. You spoke. Lucas, my boy, you spoke." Even the nurses cried. Amara placed her hand on Leonard's back and whispered, "Your children were never broken. They were just waiting for love." Leonard made the greatest decision of his life. He stood up, wiping his tears, and looked at Amara. Really looked at her. Not like a maid. Not like a worker. Not like someone beneath him. But like the woman who saved his family. The woman his wife had trusted with her dying wish. He walked up to her, voice trembling. "Stay," he said. "Not as staff. Not as an employee." He placed his hand over his heart. "Stay as family." Amara covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "Sir, are you sure?" "For the first time in 7 years," he whispered, "I'm sure of something." And just like that, the mansion that once echoed with emptiness now shook with laughter, music, and hope. The triplets, once silent and still, began responding to therapy every day. Leonard became the father he always wished he was brave enough to be. And Amara? She became their light, their healer, their protector, their second mother. All because of one woman and one secret camera that revealed the love he never knew he was missing. If this story touched your heart, don't forget, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs hope today. Your support helps us create more beautiful stories just like this one. Thank you for watching.